Carl and Liam here from Games, Brains and a Head-Banging Life, gbhblofficial.com for sure. And it's the big question, simply partnering up with the horror game moment that lives rent-free in our heads. We're doing a horror movie moment that lives rent-free in your head. That is a specific moment that either scared you so fucking much that you remember it to this very day. It's something that had an impact on you. Maybe it disturbed you. Maybe it felt uncomfortable. Maybe it just came at a time in your life or during a day part in your period in your life where it had that extra deep effect on you. It doesn't even necessarily have to involve blood and guts. It can just be something that left you feeling genuinely uneasy that you will always remember. And perhaps if you ever see it again, you get those feelings, they come back in to your mind. Just one single moment. Do you want to take it away? Or shall I go first? I'll go first.
Yeah, you go first this time.
Okay, so it's no secret. I've talked about it many times in the past, but I have a real aversion to body horror. It's the one kind of horror I struggle the most with, in particularly this style of body horror. Melting, flesh-eating diseases, stuff that makes your body collapse in on you and stuff like that. Or, super important, this one, mutilation, specifically self-mutilation, often done in a way that's almost orgasmic and enjoyable to a person. This has caused me issues for my entire life. For example, I've only ever seen Cabin Fever once because the movie made me physically sick. That's how much I have trouble with these types of horror. Things like The Incredible Melting Man, once and once alone. So, there's a movie that I think is a good movie, but has a great movie hidden in it. And it's Event Horizon.
Okay.
So, Event Horizon has a lot of shit about it. And we've been saying it in a movie moment that lives rent-free in your head almost sounds silly. But it does have something that disturbed me so much when I was younger. And I rewatched Event Horizon about 3 months ago because it had been a while. And it still fucking disturbed me. It bothered me so fucking much. And in that, eventually they will watch a video that shows what happened to the crew of the Event Horizon as they mutilate each other in an almost enjoyable way, driven mad to such a degree that it's horrible. I find it horrifying. The idea that you could be driven so crazy that there's almost a blissfulness in the destruction of yours and others' bodies. Often sex is involved and it becomes elements like that of mass rape and orgies and stuff like that, but blood and guts and so on. The sounds that play, the screams of enjoyment, it's just, I find it so horrible to the point where I genuinely would now, if I watched that movie again, skip that scene. Which to me is amazing that it has that effect on me.
That's true. I mean, that's amazing that is something that has that effect.
Yep.
But yeah, I love Event Horizon, man. I think it's super underrated, and I don't know if you know the story behind how there's like a director's cut and how it was cut to pieces to try and get it released, but it's like lost to the world. We'll probably never see it. It was like, I think it got destroyed and left in some warehouse and just got degraded, so we'll never see it.
There's a couple of stills. There's a couple of stills that do the rounds of that increased horror related to the hell stuff, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's true. But there's one moment in Event Horizon that like actually really disturbs me as well, and it's the moment where the character gets put out into space, and because there's no oxygen, like all the veins in his body like basically explode, and it's just so disgusting. It's such a like nasty moment. That definitely really disturbed me, that bit.
Yeah, it's got it. It's
got some nasty moments in it for sure. But yeah, that's a good one. Okay, so mine is from Insidious. I love Insidious. I love James Wan. What can I say? Right, it's the very opening of Insidious, and it's the reason why I think Insidious has such a big impact on me is the soundtrack of Insidious. I cannot listen to that soundtrack without like it really, it's just terrifying me. I think like music, like in lots of things, like has an impact on me in terms of like a good soundtrack can make me love something, but like I think in a horror setting, like a soundtrack is also really important in saying like that, you know, the vibe and like the atmosphere and like really putting you into that immersion feeling where you're like, yeah, you get into that sort of mindset, you know, where you're like ready to be afraid kind of thing. And yes, the opening scene, it just makes my skin crawl with the soundtrack, and it's there's a camera and it's like slowly panning down this corridor, twisting and going down this corridor, and you can see in the distance this like portrait of like this weird like ghoulish looking person, and obviously he turns out to be the Bride in Black, but it like pans right up to it and you see it's the Bride in Black like standing there, and then the word Insidious like in big red bold letters like flashes onto the screen, and it plays the soundtrack at like at like a really high light. It turns up to like 11 the soundtrack. I remember when I first watched the movie, I obviously just watched it. I didn't know what it was going to be about. I was watching by myself late at night, and just like when that come on the screen, like the music of that, like just really like freaked me out. And it just sticks with me. I cannot hear that piece of music, man, without freaking me out.
It is incredible that any paranormal horror had that effect on you at any stage. Considering there's an argument to be suggested that the most overplayed, overused villains of horror are paranormal entities, and Insidious wasn't necessarily doing anything fresh either.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason why it has an impact on me is because like I watched Evil Dead 2 definitely at like a really young age, and even though Evil Dead 2 now, and I watch it, I love it. It's like super entertaining and cheesy and over the top. I used to have this massive fear of the Henrietta character in Evil Dead 2, even though now I can see it's Sam Raimi's brother in like a prosthetic and stuff. I can see all that, but like just I had like a fear of like older ghoulish type looking old women, like looking quite ghoulish and stuff like that, quite monstrous, and I think it kind of comes from that a little bit. But yeah, that would have been another one for me, and it would have been Henrietta, like being in the cellar and stuff like that, underneath the floorboards, like wanting to get out and stuff like that. Always used to freak me out a lot. Watched that way too young.
Oh yeah, it applies that to a lot of freaking horror movies you would watch too young.
Yeah. We should make a video about maybe that, like horror movie scenes that you saw when we were like way too young that fucked us up, basically.
It is still fascinating, and it probably deserves deep analysis, but maybe we'll come back to this big question in the future, where this is an insight into both our minds' workings, is that for all our we review horror, watch horror all the time and so on, that there are still horror movies or events that have an effect experience. As I say, I'm opening up and telling you all that body horror to this day still disturbs me. I have a real problem with it. Give me slashing chainsaws through guts, whatever and all that, no problem. But give me a flesh-eating virus that eats away at your body, and that's me done. I'm out.
You're not a very big David Cronenberg fan, then?
I can enjoy them. I can enjoy them. I really, really like Shivers, but I struggle like fuck with Rabid, unsurprisingly. Yeah. There you go. There's our horror movie moments live rent-free in your head. You got any thoughts? You got your own, you know what to do. Let us know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please help us out by giving us a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button. If you really liked what you saw, consider donating to keep the website and channel running by buying us a coffee via our coffee page or picking up some merch from our Big Cartel store. You can check us out on gbhbl.com as well as via our social media, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, as well as listen to our interviews via SoundCloud, Apple Music and Spotify. Just search for GBHBL. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?